Good morning. Welcome to another episode of HardFoul. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself, however you are listening, whether it is on YouTube, SoundCloud, and or iTunes. Still working on Spotify. Support you guys have given has been great. I tell you guys that every show because it's really been cool, and it's growing day and day. Even if our overall numbers of subscribers and stuff aren't, I've had people just giving really positive feedback. It's been really awesome. Loving the experience. I will never not tell you guys that, because if you guys weren't watching and weren't listening, it would make it a lot harder to wake up and want to do this. Like, as much as I love sports, as much as I love broadcasting or doing my podcast / wannabe radio show, the fact I'm getting responses, the fact that you guys are tuning in, the fact that you guys are watching the videos, I love it. It's been great. I can't thank you guys enough. Don't forget to go tell your friends. Word of mouth is huge thing. Networking, obviously you guys know, like to talk about business stuff. So networking is a huge key. Go tell your friends, tell your family. You know, like I said, I'm up to 35 subscribers on YouTube. I'm not able to check it on iTunes, but love all the support that you guys have been giving. You guys are awesome. You guys are great. So let's get this show started. Let's understand something here. There is what we are told to believe, and there is what is actually true and what we actually believe, right? So we can be told, let's say, I'm going to go old school, Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player of all time. Or Bill Russell is the greatest basketball player of all time. We can be told these things enough that we will believe it. And we're just like, well, yeah, it's like, you can go and it's like, oh, well, I look at this number and I look at this number and he's got 11 rings and he scored 100 points and averaged 50 a game. Yeah, of course, they're the greatest players of all time. And then you can dig even deeper and do your own personal research, and you can find out, oh, well, yeah, but they were the two of like 4 7-footers. I think they were 2 of 6 guys who were even 6'8" or taller back at that time. There's only 11 teams in the league. There was still this thing called segregation. There was many other factors that went into them. It's like, okay, are they really the greatest player of all time? What do I do with news? I don't listen or watch any major news outlet. I go online, and whenever I find a story, I fact check that story by looking at other stories. I look at, how did this person report it? How did they report it? Because a lot of times news and stories and headlines are simply opinionated, and you have to find your own opinion, not just listen to someone else give you their opinion on it. Not that I'm any different. I do have my own opinions, and I won't deny having my own opinions, and I feel pretty strongly about my opinions. If you've commented on a video of mine, I've probably I think I responded to all except like maybe one comment, and that was only because the guy was just, or 2 or 3 comments that were just like, hey, go Dodgers, stuff like that. So I'm going to tell you guys something here, and you can think that this is just my opinion, but I'm going to support my opinion and fact check my opinion, just like a news source should. Ezekiel Elliott is about to waste what should be the greatest career by an NFL running back ever. That's a very strong statement, I understand, but it's a very true statement. We are taught to believe there's 3 guys who are above everyone else, who are just on the Mount Rushmore of life in terms of sports. We are taught that Jerry Rice is the greatest NFL player of all time. Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Me personally, I only agree with one of the 3, and I only agree with Michael Jordan being the best basketball player of all time. I don't even think Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver of all time. That'll be a video coming out later, and if you've heard earlier podcasts, my opinion on Calvin Johnson, I think Calvin is the greatest receiver of all time. And I'm not going to go into that now, but I'll defend that in the other video. We are taught from a quarterback perspective, Tom Brady's the greatest. Oh, well, Peyton Manning's the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. That, oh, well, Joe Montana was he was the best Super Bowl quarterback of all time, and he was the greatest until Brady passed him. We all understand the greatest quarterback we've ever seen in any era any lifetime, the most talented, the most complete, the most physically gifted is Michael Vick, right? Like, I hope we all understand this. And I thought it was very interesting that I was watching FS1 the other day, and Michael Vick was talking about Ezekiel Elliott and the distractions and everything that comes along with being an NFL star or just a celebrity in general. And I thought it was very fitting because to me, they're one and the same. Ezekiel Elliott should be the greatest running back of all time. He should finish with the most yards, the most touchdowns, the most accolades, and just from a pure talent perspective, he is as good or better than any of them. Strong statement, but I will back it up. Michael Vick was the exact same way at quarterback. Michael Vick, I don't think most people realize, Michael Vick's accuracy, while it was not a strong start, he never trended downwards from passing. He only got better as a passer. And his speed and pure athleticism is unlike anybody we've ever seen. I don't want to hear the Cam Newton comparison. I don't want to hear the RG3 rookie year comparison. Michael Vick, unlike any other quarterback you could have made a case, was the fastest player in the league at one point in time. Understand this, not the fastest quarterback, not the fastest running back. He was the fastest player in the NFL for a good 3-4 year run. He was that electric. He was that otherworldly of a player. He had an arm that could throw on the run. He could throw 40, 50 yards. Set throw could throw 60 yards downfield. He's one of the greatest arms you've ever seen, especially when you consider a 6-foot diminutive stature. Like, a lot of guys have big arms like Ben Roethlisberger, John Elway, Cam Newton. They're all 6'5", 6'6", 240 to 50 pounds. Michael Vick is 6 foot tall, if he's that, and like 220, if he got that big. He was the greatest combination of speed, arm talent, overall athleticism, and talent that we've ever seen in the National Football League. Tom Brady has the most accolades. Joe Montana's got, before Tom Brady had the most accolades. Brett Favre had the most yards. Manning got the most yards. Michael Vick, during his prime, was better than all of them. And Ezekiel Elliott will be the exact same way. And why do I say Ezekiel Elliott will be the exact same way? Because not only does he have the talent that every running back before him has, he has the power, he has the speed, he has the soft hands to catch the football. He can block as well as any running back. He's playing behind the most dominant offensive line that we've seen since the mid-90s Cowboys, who produced the NFL's all-time leading rusher. And Ezekiel Elliott is in an entirely different talent class than Emmitt Smith. I love Emmitt Smith. I think he's a great player, and I think the way I personally view athletes, I love the fact that he is hardworking as all hell. I like Jerry Rice because Jerry Rice would get up at 4 a.m. and run routes. He'd work out and practice before anybody else would get up. I love the fact that Emmitt Smith was the consummate gym rat. He was always working. He had the commercial where he talked about he could take a break after winning the Super Bowl, and he took like a 2-second break in between reps. He was determined. He was motivated, and he deserved and earned every single yard he ever had. But he's not in the same talent class. He's not in the same. Emmitt Smith could not hold Ezekiel Elliott's jockstrap. That's how much more talented Ezekiel Elliott is than Emmitt Smith. But Ezekiel Elliott, who had issues at Ohio State, had issues coming into the league, is continuing to have issues with not just off the field stuff, but even on the field stuff. There's now reports coming out. And like I said, I fact check all these things. I hate the just proverbial, he's having trouble in the weight room, not being there enough, or he's having trouble with chemistry with the teammates. But I fact checked a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of people talking about this now. Of course, they don't talk about it during the season. You know, he's becoming the league's leading rusher. He's got all this success and newfound fame, and no one's going to talk about it then. But now when you break it down, you're starting to hear some of these stories come out. Ezekiel Elliott, behind that offensive line, which is not only as good as that 90s line the Cowboys had, it's as young. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, for the next 10 years, should get 15, or for the next 9 years, for the first 10 years of his career, so his rookie year plus the next 9, should get 1,500 plus yards a season. That puts him at 10 years, 15,000 yards. And I think he gets that easily. You give him another 3-4 years, the man's going to have a chance at 32 years old to touch, or starting at 32 years old, which is after his first 10 years, he's going to have a chance next 3 or 4 to get to 20,000 yards. He's going to have a chance to be at 150, 160 touchdowns. He's going to have a chance to have caught 30, 40 touchdowns and to have caught 4,000 or 5,000 yards. He is, think about this, and this is going to be another huge statement, and take it for what you will. Ezekiel Elliott is a notch slower than Adrian Peterson, more physical, or just as physical as Jim Brown, and has just as good as hands as Roger Craig, or for modern terms, Le'Veon Bell. He is all of that, and none of them had an offensive line like he has. This is what it would look like if Walter Payton had the Cowboys' offensive line. This is what it looks like. But because he's having all these issues, and the same way Michael Vick had his issues, and I'm not trying to compare the two, because I think what Michael Vick did was atrocious, but we're not getting into that. The constant distractions, the constant mess-ups, the constant just little things that Emmitt Smith and Jerry Rice and some of these other guys did, Ezekiel Elliott's going to ruin this. I mean, I think he has a chance to be maybe the third or fourth most talented player ever. Like, he's right up there with the Deion Sanders of the world, the Calvin Johnsons, the Randy Mosses of the world. And Calvin Johnson was determined, and Calvin Johnson was the epitome of hardworking, otherworldly talented. He just left early. Deion Sanders kind of had to get, he was so otherworldly talented that he never had to the same way these other guys did, but he got it at some point. He did understand, okay, I've got to do this if I want to be on this level. Randy Moss, he had to go to Oakland and struggle for 2 or 3 years before he finally got it and joined up with Tom Brady in New England. Ezekiel, and there's 40, 50 touchdowns Randy Moss left on his career. Calvin Johnson, because of leaving early, there's 40, 50, maybe even more touchdowns he left on his career. Michael Vick, because of the legal issues, there's probably 50 to 80. The way passing became, there's probably 100-something touchdowns Michael Vick left on his career. And none of them ever got there because they wasted what is some of the most talented and what should have been some of the most illustrious careers we've ever seen in sports. And I get it. When you're talented, you don't have to work as hard as everybody else. But don't be mad when you waste what could have been. You guys know how I love to talk about business and compare business and sports because sports are a business. I understand this. I'm not someone who's naive and is like, oh, well, no, it's all about the fun and it's all about the fans. And yeah, no, it's a business. Excuse me. Excuse me again. One of the biggest things about it being a business is you have to make business decisions. We've all heard about the exponential growth, the Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, all these franchises and owners, the exponential growth they've had in their value. I mean, Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys for $20-some million, and now they're worth $2 billion, almost $3 billion. Like, all right, they're even higher than that. I'm sorry. The Cowboys are like at 4-something now. I talked about the Warriors going from buying for $85 million now $2.4 billion. There's just so much growth, and the net worth of all these teams have gone up so drastically that you have to, at some point as an owner, think, okay, I bought in for $50 million. It's now worth $1.9 billion. I've made X amount of money over the years because of the growth, the amount of money the team's brought in. I'm getting up there in age. I don't want to have all these things. It's not a family business. I'm not passing it down. I'm going to cash out. Leslie Anderson is about to sell the Houston Rockets. Leslie Anderson, who bought the Rockets for what is basically dirt poor, he basically got it for free compared to what they are now, is going to be selling the Rockets for almost $2 billion. when you sell anything in life, and I mean anything, if you want to sit there and sell this mouse, I've got to make this mouse look good. I've got to tell you, it's like, this mouth has Bluetooth. This mouth has an all Logitech little chip, so it can connect with any kind of computer. You want to make that mouse seem like this is the best mouse you could have, whether it is or not. With the Rockets, they just went out and made themselves look oh so good. And everyone's going to give you the generic answer. It's like, oh, well, they're going to be able to sell it because now they've got superstars, and that's what... No. Trust me. You can have superstars. The Timberwolves have theoretically 3 superstars on their team, and that franchise is nowhere near the worth of a team like the Warriors, Cavaliers with LeBron, or the Los Angeles Lakers. What makes it worth is simply what is your ROI. Talked about this before on the show. Return on investment. If your return on investment is not good, nobody cares if you had Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Shaq, LeBron, and Kevin Garnett all in their prime. If those 5 players were bottom 10% jersey sellers, bottom 10% merchandise sellers, no team, no owner would care. No businessman would care. You know what a team that hasn't gone up a lot in value, despite how well they've done? I mean, they've all exponentially gone up. But the San Antonio Spurs don't have near the increase that even a team like the Warriors have. The Warriors, which were bought, like I said, bought for $85 million, now 2.4. They've gone up more in the last 7 years than the Spurs have gone up the last 20. Why is that? Well, how many people do you know were buying David Robinson jerseys? How many people do you know were buying Tim Duncan jerseys, Tony Parker jerseys, Manu Ginobili jerseys? They weren't people weren't going to the games. They weren't buying these guys' merchandise. So what's that tell you? That franchise is less profitable. They simply don't sell. I could open up a store tomorrow and be like, we have everything you guys would ever need. We have electronics. We have cooking. We have home. We have furniture. We have everything you'll ever need in your life. We have car parts. We're basically Walmart. And not sell nearly as well as Walmart, and I won't be worth what Walmart's worth. Why does the Rockets make sense to sell now? We have Chris Paul, who's been a consistent top 10 jersey seller in his career. You have James Harden, who's been a top 5 jersey seller the last 5 years. Last 3 years, I apologize. You tried to acquire Carmelo Anthony, who during his prime was a top 5 jersey seller. And what makes someone's jerseys go up? What makes someone's merchandise go up? When you got to get new. When does Apple score the most out of any time of the year? When the new iPhone drops. iPhone, product placement. When the iPhone drops, everybody's getting new phones. Everyone's getting new chargers. Everyone's getting new this. Everyone's getting new earphones. Well, if I've just over the last 2 months acquired Chris Paul, and I'm about to acquire Carmelo Anthony, I just give James Harden this new mega deal, embracing him as my franchise player. I go out and get another piece or two. I trade Ryan Anderson for another player. That's new merchandise. Hey, I'm about to sell you this thing for $2 billion, and you're almost immediately going to see $50 to $60 million just in new merchandise over this year. I have this new toy coming out this year. I have this new toy coming out this year. If you're Microsoft, when does Microsoft sell its best? Or not its best, but one of its biggest. When they have new computers coming out, when a new Windows operating system comes out, when the Xbox comes out, because you have to buy new. Why did the Warriors skyrocket? Because they had Curry jerseys coming out. They had Thompson jerseys coming out. Why did Durant's jersey sell so much last year? Because they had to get new ones. You could wear the Thunder Durant jersey, but that wasn't the current one. You could have an iPhone 5, but that's not the current one. New And new products are always one of the biggest sellers in anything you do financially. If I want the new tablet, I want the new laptop, I'm going to have to spend the money. So selling the Rockets now is perfect because Leslie Anderson basically got to write all these checks. He got to write hot checks. Think about that. If you don't know what a hot check is I send a check into, say, the IRS, for example. Don't send them into the IRS. It's a really bad idea, but they're my example. I send a hot check into the IRS because I owe $100 on my taxes. $100, I don't have $100 in my bank account, but I sent the check. And if I send the check and I know the IRS is going to clear it on a Monday, or I know if they're going to clear it on a Saturday night, well, my bank's closed Saturday night. So that transaction is not going to go through until Monday. I got until Monday to write out to get $100. So if I'm Leslie Anderson, of course James Harden can get this 4-year deal, this new mega max deal. I'm not going to be paying it. Of course, we'll get Chris Paul in here getting for his 1-year option. Hell, throw a new 5-year deal at him. Yeah, we'll bring on Melo. I don't have to pay him. I'm going to write this check. And before my bank opens, before they can clear it, this new guy's going to be in town. New guy's going to take ownership. And he's going to have to write those checks. And all I did was buy in for my $20 million. I don't even think it was that much. And I'm going to sell out for $2 billion. $2 billion. That's a lot of, I don't know how many of you guys know this. $2 billion is a lot of money. There was some more product placement for it. If you guys just heard that, I had that alarm. I got a lot of alarms. I don't sleep much. Always working, always grinding. I'm always enjoying myself though, which makes the whole process so much better. Yeah. So, my last thing I want to talk about, and I want to talk about the true value of star power, right? I've talked about it before where there's like 3 or 4 franchises that can really just make you a star. The Cowboys can just make you not just a star, but they make you a legend. Being a star in the Yankees makes you a legend. Being a star on the Lakers makes you a legend. Being a star on the Packers makes you a legend. Lonzo Ball is benefiting so much from being a Laker right now. Let me put this into terms. So Lonzo Ball just won Summer League MVP, even though he was not the leading scorer, leading assist, leading rebounder. He wasn't even leading scorer on his own team. Why? Well, Lonzo Ball getting the Summer League MVP is a much better story and much better headline for the NBA than Kuzma wins Summer League MVP, because then people are going to Google, who is Kuzma? Lonzo Ball is a really good player. He is a great passer. He is a good three-point shooter. He shoots funky, but whatever. And he's actually playing probably better defense than most people thought he could. Now, I discredit all of these things from what he's shown in the Summer League because it's the Summer League, and I've already vented my opinion on the Summer League. My opinion that will not change, though, is the star power aspect Lonzo has. I heard the other day, and it was not going to do name dropping, but a guy was talking about Lonzo could be the next one. Like, Bird and Magic changed the culture of the game when they joined the NBA. Michael Jordan changed the culture of the game when he joined the NBA. LeBron changed the culture of the NBA when he joined the game. Steph Curry changed the culture. We went from these guys who were high skill, high passers to the athletic dominance of Jordan to the LeBron positionless to Steph Curry shooting. And he's like, Lonzo Ball can do that exact same thing with passing. And he can. Take that back. It's not what I meant to say. Lonzo Ball cannot. The Lakers can. His media team can. Lonzo Ball cannot do that. What Lonzo Ball is, and what any star is they are what the media makes them out to be. I tell you, this guy's the best player of all time. You're going to start to believe, yeah, he's the best player of all time. Everyone talks about it. Everyone says he's the best player of all time. There's guys, I've talked to a bunch of people about sports, and I know people that know so little about sports. I could throw a random name, and they would say, yeah, that guy's the greatest. Of course he is. You talked about him. I know him. Yeah. I could tell them that A.J. McCarron was one of the greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time. And they'd be like, yeah, dude, you see that pass he made last week? And I'm like, yeah, dude, he hasn't played. There's guys who, and I compared Lonzo Ball earlier, like way, way back when I first started doing videos, to Evan Turner. And I thought, yeah, they're basically the same player. They're 6'5", 6'5", Evan Turner 6'7". Both have good court vision. Both are passers more so than they are shooters. Lonzo's probably a better shooter than Evan Turner, but Evan Turner's probably plays better defense. Lonzo Ball, to me, as good as a passer as he is, I don't think he's the best passer we've seen the last 5 years. I personally think Ben Simmons is a better passer than Lonzo Ball. I think the guy who's really underrated is Kendall Marshall is a better passer than Lonzo Ball. Think about this. Kendall Marshall, 4 years ago, was what Lonzo Ball is now. He was the guy that made the touchdown type pass. He was the guy who made that backcourt cut pass, back cut pass that guys just didn't see. He had court vision that was on another level. If you go back and look at that UNC championship team, Kendall Marshall can make a case was the most important player on that team. You go and look at when he played with the Lakers, he averaged, it was like 8 assists with the Lakers. He was an otherworldly passer. And then he's still playing Summer League game 5 years later, 4 or 5 years later. Why is that? Because his team, his brand, his marketing isn't what Lonzo Ball's is. Lonzo Ball's going to be a superstar, not because of what he's doing, but because of his team and his media and what the Lakers can do. Like I said, Brett Favre if he was a Viking for his whole career, he's just a great quarterback. But he played for the Packers. He's a legend. Roger Staubach I always say his name wrong. I don't know if I said Starbuck. I always say his name wrong. If he was on the Detroit Lions, he's just a great player. He's not a legend. Could you imagine if Randy Moss actually became a Cowboy? Do you realize what Randy Moss's legacy would be? Because Michael Irvin has a better legacy than Randy Moss, despite not being in Randy Moss's category as far as how talented and how great of a receiver he was. Lonzo Ball is great. I'm not taking nothing away from him. But his team, his marketing, his media, that's what's going to make him otherwise. That's what's going to transcend the sport. He himself is not a transcendent player. The only guy I'd give even a slight maybe to being a transcendent player is, I think, what LeBron did in a city like Cleveland. And a place like Cleveland. Apologize. Someone's going to sit there and call me out. Oh, he doesn't know his geography. In a place like Cleveland, he was able to create one of the 2 or 3 biggest brands you've ever seen in basketball. It's right up there with Jordan. With everything he's been able to do, he is the closest we've seen to being in a non-major city to becoming a legend and legendary status. But if you're Kobe with the Lakers, as much as I love Kobe, if you are Derek Jeter with the Yankees, if you are Troy Aikman and that whole team with the Cowboys, playing with certain teams makes you a legend. Whereas on any other team, you would just be a star, a great player. You'd be Kendall Marshall still playing in the Summer League 4 years later. Someone needs to sign Kendall Marshall, by the way. Hey, Pelicans, if the Pelicans had just signed Rondo, I would say them. That's what makes a superstar. That's what makes a transcendent player. That's what makes a guy change and revolutionize the game. Anyway, you guys, like I end every show with, please, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, HardFoul podcast. Loving the support, loving the views. You guys are great. Appreciate every single one. Like I said, I reply to my comments, so please comment. I will talk back with you guys. I'll defend my opinions, and I also listen to yours. I'm actually getting a lot of feedback on the Dodgers one, and just to clarify, people are coming at me saying, oh, the Dodgers are paying $50-60 million for these guys. Well, yeah, but they still have a $200 million payroll beyond that. Yeah. They just have the access and luxury to things that it's impossible to compete with them. If you were the Tampa Bay Rays, the Milwaukee Brewers, if you were a team like Just these Pittsburgh Pirates. We just simply don't have the funds for that kind of thing. If and the point bringing up of, oh yeah, well they just re-signed their players. You mad at a team for re-signing their players? No, of course not. The Rockies re-signed their players, and they don't have a $200 million payroll. The Rockies they re-signed Cargo. They were able to re-sign Tulo. They were able to re-sign Arenado. They went out and got Ian Desmond, and they still haven't touched $200 million. They're still a mid-level payroll team. Like I said, you guys, though, not here to argue about the Dodgers, but simply I do read my comments. I do follow up on that kind of stuff. Please keep supporting, likes, comments, subscribes. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you guys on Friday.